7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and Breeds in for the touchdown.
Things that like that stuff. Depth, tactics, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for die-hard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today's episode is number 9, entitled Camping Out. Camping Out is going to dive into the suspensions around the NFL and injuries that impact the Bengals this season. We'll also talk about players to watch in training camp, a sleeper from the 6, our new wide receiver, and also we'll talk about the possibility of a former Bengal rejoining the Bengals, as well as our owner, Mike Brown. So we'll start off with our first segment, press coverage. And in our news bits from press coverage, Browns receiver Josh Gordon has been reinstated. He was banned due to the substance abuse violation, so he's back in Cleveland, while Le'Veon Bell mulls a possible suspension for missing drug tests. It looks like he could miss 4 games. It's interesting to see what will happen with that. Cornerback Dennard worked out with wide receiver Chad Ocho, and it looks like he's putting in some work along with Drake Kirkpatrick, who also was training with the great Champ Bailey. Mike Brown spoke on the state of the Bengals and the organization and how he felt about that Pittsburgh playoff game, and he also alluded to the possibility of a Ring of Honor as early as next season. Stay tuned. This next bit of news is going to hurt Bengals fans, but Anquan Boldin signed with the Detroit Lions on a 1-year deal. The Bengals also released Taylor Mays, reportedly in the wake of a possible failed substance abuse violation, and they also waived Dy'Shawn Mobley, a rookie running back. Marvin Lewis announced that he will sit Burfict the entire preseason. Former Bengal Willie Anderson will attend the training camp as a coach. And the Bengals placed Burfict and Maualuga on the NFI list. They also moved Tyler Eifert, Brandon Thompson, and James Wright to the active PUP list. And last but not least, the Bengals signed a new receiver from Canada, Rashaun Simonise. They also signed veteran safety Jimmy Wilson and rookie defensive end college free agent Jack Gangwish. And now we'll move into our next segment, announcements. So I have a couple of announcements for you guys. I'll make sure that I keep it short and brief. But our first announcement is about our show duration. On my last episode, I ran a poll to see what you guys thought would be an ideal time for the length of this show. We were able to meet at 20 to 25 minutes. So I'll make sure that I adhere to this format going forward. As usual, you guys can subscribe to us on iTunes. Make sure you leave us a review. We're in the App Store at New Stripe City. We're also on Facebook at New Stripe City. You guys know the drill, but for the new listeners, make sure you check us out. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you like us on Facebook. Our next announcement is about SoundCloud. Now, I'm facing a dilemma with SoundCloud, guys. They want us to subscribe to a monthly subscription there, but I want to know how you guys feel about that. If you like to see the show continue on SoundCloud, I do have a donations tab at the bottom of the screen if you do want it to continue there. Let me know in the comment box if you guys want this show to continue on SoundCloud. I'm weighing my options, and I might just decide to either nix it and come up with another option for those who don't have iPhones, or I might continue the use of SoundCloud. So let me know. I also would like to announce that I'm working on an upcoming interview with the AFC Northerners. Those guys are good. If you ever get a chance, head over to their YouTube channel and check them out. Their name is AFC Northerners. It's a great group of guys. They all have unique perspectives, and they all represent teams from the AFC North, our division. So I'm looking forward to getting something set in stone soon with those guys. So stay tuned for that. And last but not least, I'll also have a way too early 53 roster coming. So it's going to be my predictions on the roster. I might initially release it as an article at newstripecity.blogspot.com, so check that out there, but I'll definitely do a recap on one of my upcoming shows for those who like to listen to the show and have me break down certain things. So stay tuned for that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our announcements. Thank you for your time. As Marshawn Lynch would say, you know why I'm here. We're going to kick off our next segment, Bengals Real Talk. And kicking off Bengals Real Talk, we're going to discuss the suspensions around the NFL. So as we know, Tom Brady, the quarterback of the Patriots, is going to be out and suspended for the first 4 games. This is a huge advantage for the Cincinnati Bengals and our goal of accomplishing that first round bye. We need to lock that up, either the number 1 or number 2 spot. We let it slip away last year, but I think with Brady being out, this is a strong possibility for us to go ahead and gain that advantage within those first 4 weeks over the Patriots. Now, Tom Brady is essential to what the Patriots do, so it'll be interesting to see how his impact of him not being there and the rookie Garoppolo jumping in there, how things will work out for the Patriots. We've seen it before, though, when the Patriots had to bring in a backup in the past with Matt Castle, and they still were pretty productive. You can never count out the Patriots. When you have Bill Belichick and some of those guys on that staff, you can never count them out. I know some people don't, agree with some of their tactics, and I don't as well, but I do respect them. So we need to take advantage of this because the AFC is officially wide open. And our next suspension comes from our lovely friends over in Pittsburgh, and it's Mr. Le'Veon Bell, who likes to partake in a lot of recreational activities apparently, and has failed to show up for a couple of his drug tests, and as a result he's facing a 4-game ban. This also works in our advantage as well, and I will say that the Steelers, even though D'Angelo Williams is a decent backup, he is no Lev Bell. And so this evens the playing for both teams early in the season, week 2, when we face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll be tuned in, and I think that it will be fair on both sides. I mean, Burfict's out, Bell is out, so it'll be interesting. And also, Martavis Bryant will be out. Martavis Bryant, a lot of people don't realize how big this guy is to the Pittsburgh offense. When we play these guys, for the most part, the only reason we don't key in on Antonio is because Martavis can take the top off of a defense. So he's going to be a huge loss for them this year. I don't think people really realize that. Teams are going to be able to key in on Antonio Brown. AB is still a great receiver, but he definitely will not see as loose of coverage without Martavis Bryant, who's out for the entire year. Wow, they have a problem out there, man. They need to kind of tone it down a little bit. I don't know what's in the water over there, but hey, I'm not complaining. I'll take it. This also opens up the AFC North for us. It gives us a chance to get an advantage over Pittsburgh. We all know in the AFC North, the class of the division is the Bengals and the Steelers. I don't know where this Ravens stuff is coming from. I respect the Ravens, but to be honest, lately the Ravens aren't what they used to be. Ever since they lost Ed Reed, ever since they lost Ray Lewis, they just aren't the same team. Their drafts aren't really that good as people make them out to be. They've missed on a lot of guys lately, and they've let a lot of guys go away, and they paid Flacco an enormous amount of money, which I laughed at. I mean, he's a decent quarterback, but come on, man. Look at those contracts. But anyway, this is going to open things up for us in the division to get a lead early, so I'm all about that. And next, we also have J.J. Watt, who basically is the heart of the Texans. So that's going to be a huge loss with him being out with a back injury. And the Bengals and the Texans have developed a little bit of a rivalry since 2011. So that's a huge loss for them. And it'll be interesting to see if he should possibly be back by that Texans game. But there could be a re-injury or something like that. So stay tuned for the Texans. They did a lot of moves in the offseason, bringing in Brock Osweiler, bringing in Lamar Miller, so that's a huge loss to lose their best player. And I'll wrap things up with Steve Smith. Steve Smith is key to what these guys do. He definitely still has something left in the tank last year, and being on that PUP list, they're is a possibility that they could lose some games early, but it is the active PUP list, so he could possibly be back. The next topic will address training camp players that you should keep an eye on, and I wanted to kind of go through a couple of the different position sets and name a couple of players from each position that could possibly be some guys that you want to keep your eyes on. So we'll start off with the wide receivers. Now, obviously we drafted Tyler Boyd, but everyone knows that guy's going to make the roster. But there's other guys out there like Jake Kumaro, the guy that was on the practice squad last year, who's vying for a permanent spot this year. He reminds me of Kevin Walter. A lot of my fellow Bengals fans will remember exactly who that guy is. He seems like he's from that mode. He has to be able to gain separation and show that he can do it on a consistent basis and show that he's not just a training camp star or a preseason guy. He definitely jumped out last preseason, and guys in the jungle love this guy. So keep an eye on Jake Kumaro, but also keep an eye on my boy, Super Mario. You hear that? Yes, I love this guy. He's explosive. What doesn't he do? Well, Darren Simmons has said that he's going to get every opportunity to earn that return job this year. He's an explosive returner. He's so fast, blazing speed, but I also want to see what he can do in the offense. I think he's a gadget player that you can use. He's a poor man's Tavon Austin, in my opinion. And when he got opportunities last year, he did make plays. So keep an eye on him. But last but not least, we also have to keep an eye on Cody Core, the 6th round pick out of Ole Miss. He's a very big guy. He's very fast, very athletic. He's coachable. That's one of the reasons that the Bengals drafted him. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like as well. So all three of those guys are guys to keep your eye on, and all three of those guys could potentially be fighting for 1 to 2 spots on that roster for the receiver position. So this is going to be a heated battle. But we'll move on to the defensive line with some guys that I think that we should look into, like Will Clark, Margus Hunt. Another guy would be Deshaun Williams and also Marcus Hardison. So starting things off with Will Clark, he's a guy that we drafted originally to replace Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson's back, but we have to see what Will Clark can do. He put on a lot of muscle last year, but he didn't get too many opportunities, so he'll be a guy that you need to watch in camp to see how he responds and how he reacts, where he's lining up at. We all know about the enigma known as Margus Hunt. Well, it's time to pay the piper, and it's time to see what this guy can do. He's had some years to develop. He's had coaching. There is no excuse for Margus Hunt not to make this roster. However, there really isn't anyone behind him that is presenting a challenge to keep him off of this roster. We also have the steal of the year last year, Deshaun Williams. Deshaun Williams was a guy that was undrafted out of Clemson that we signed and blew up in the preseason. He had too many sacks. We had to even hide this guy on our roster, so we had to deactivate him and let him sit for one game so that other teams wouldn't be able to catch on to this guy. He's a guy that also received a contract offer from the Saints last year. So Deshaun Williams is definitely one of my favorites. They call him Baby Gino. It'll be interesting to see what his role is, where they line him up at, because he's, I believe, 287 pounds. So he's not as massive as some of the guys in the middle, like an Andrew Billings. Of course, we're going to be keeping our eye on Andrew Billings as well to see if he gets any snaps with the first team. But I will wrap things up for the D-line with Marcus Hardison. He was a guy that was picked in the 4th round. A lot of guys like him. He was known as a pass rusher in college. He's more of a defensive tackle / defensive end, kind of like Wallace Gilberry. So he's another guy to keep an eye on and to see where he's either in the trenches or on the outside. He could possibly be a guy that could play where Margus Hunt is lining up and could provide some competition for him on the edge. And next we'll move to our linebackers, where I'm looking at guys like Paul Dawson, I'm looking at Marquise Flowers, and I am wrapping things up with Carlos Dansby, who I think was the biggest, low-key, hugest signing of the offseason. So of course Paul Dawson was drafted last year. This gave a lot of us in the jungle a lot of hope because he was a terror. He looked like Vontaze Burfict 2.0. there's no understanding on why this guy cannot thrive in this linebacking core. So I'd look to see where we line him up in camp. Is he going to be primarily in the will position, the Mike position? I like to see him all over the place. He kind of blew up preseason last year too with some huge tackling games. So Paul Dawson, keep your eyes on him. Remember that name. I know most of you guys in the jungle already know that name, but he's another guy to keep your eye on. Marquise Flowers is a guy out of Arizona that we picked a couple years ago as well. He's an athletic freak. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he was a former safety. So he's never been able to participate in camp or a season fully healthy. So we get to see what he can offer this year as well. And Carlos Dansby, the savvy veteran, the guy that can play all three positions as well. It'll be interesting to see what his dynamic is with this team, how quickly he picks up this defense, how quickly his force is felt. And I think that this defense this year has potential to finish top 3 like they did under Mike Zimmer a few years ago. We'll also shift gears to the offensive line. 3 guys to look at: Russell Boldin, Christian Westerman, and Cedric Ogbuyi. So all eyes are on Russell Boldin to see if he can take a step and improve. He's known as the weak link in the chain for the offensive line, and he's got a lot of pressure on him, and this could be a make or break year for him because Christian Westerman is breathing down his back. So we'll look to see how he responds, if he's getting his snaps off right, is he able to hold his blocks, because if he can't, then he will be on the hot seat, and Christian Westerman will be licking his chops to get an opportunity. And Westerman is a rookie guard that we took out of Arizona State, I believe, and he can also play center. So he's a guy that meets the size metrics in my prime for the Bengals center position. So if Boldin struggles, Westerman could be a guy that steps in. It'll be interesting to see if he will stay at guard or if they will work him in the rotation at center. We don't know who the backup center is going to be. It's not really a feature where it's really out there. It's up in the air, so stay tuned. And Cedric Ogbuyi, our first round pick that a lot of us did not like initially, but after further review has been a great pick, will be starting this year on the right side. So I think that he's going to do well there. I don't see any signs of him not succeeding. He'll be a great right tackle. Ending things up and ending with the secondary. And a guy to key in on, one of my favorites is Josh Shaw, the cornerback / safety out of USC that we drafted last year. He got a lot of playing time last year, but it seems like he's getting more snaps at safety. To me, I think that the Bengals are going to use him in that hybrid role that Tyrann Mathieu is in Arizona. So stay tuned for him. See where they're lining him up at. Is he going to be on the outside, inside? Is he going to be deep in the secondary at safety? He's a guy that I kind of want to see how the Bengals plan to utilize him. We also have Darren Smith. We're also pretty thin at safety with Reggie Nelson leaving. The emergence of the position has opened up for some of the younger guys. So Darren Smith was a guy from Fresno State that was a pick machine, but he has yet to get a chance to get some valuable snaps. So we'll see what Darren Smith can do as well. And I'll wrap things up with one of the biggest stories of training camp, and where everybody will be looking is at Darqueze Dennard and what he can do. It seems like he's penciled in to be our slot corner, but he's aiming to be a starter. So him and Dre Kirkpatrick are going to be battling it out for that starting position. But in my opinion, I think Dre will get one more shot to prove that the position belongs to him. And moving on to our next topic, the sleeper in the six. Now, one of you guys wanted me to speak about our receiver that we signed from Canada. And this guy's name is Rashaun Simonise. This guy is 6'5", 200 pounds. He played college ball in Canada, and the Bengals just signed him to a contract. Now, I took a look at the guy's highlight tape. He looks the part. He looks pretty legit. He's not somebody that I would expect to make the roster immediately. I mean, you never know. You never say never. But I think he's a guy that we can stash on the practice squad, develop this guy into a respectable productive receiver. It's definitely there. He looks like he could be a deep threat. He looks like he has great hand-eye coordination when he catches some of the balls thrown his way. And he also was pretty productive. He only played in 8 games, but he finished with 51 receptions, 1,079 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns. That's very impressive. So definitely keep your eye out on this sleeper from the 6. Next, I want to get into my trip back home, man. I had a wonderful time being back in the Natty. Got up with a lot of friends, old friends, relatives. I just had a great time, man. It was great to be in the city and see how much the city has evolved and how much things have changed, what's different, and the best part about it is the support for the team. I can't say how much that really meant to me. I took my fiance. It was her first time being in the Natty, so I showed her a good time. We went through Alabama's, and it was funny because there was a guy that came in with a Steelers hat on, and everybody in there just let the guy have it. We were ready to kick the dude out just for being a squealer. So I definitely enjoyed my time. I hope to be back, hopefully for a game. I definitely want to be in PBS, definitely rooting the team. But man, I went to Kenwood, and I think it was either the Cincy shop. I don't remember which one it was, but those prices for the gear, man, had to pay an arm and a leg to get something out of there. But you know, hopefully in the future I'll be able to come back and make trips. All in all, a great trip. I know I didn't get to see everybody, but I will be back. And moving on, we'll talk about the possibility of a former Bengal. Now, early in the show, I told you guys I think that there's a possibility of a former Bengal rejoining the team and coming back in stripes. And I'll tell you what, I think that Andrew Hawkins, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but I really don't think it is. I think that Andrew Hawkins could get cut from the Cleveland Browns. Why would they do this, right? Okay, so we all know that the Cleveland Browns selected like 5 receivers in the draft. 5. And Josh Gordon just got activated back to the active roster, right? They already released Brian Hartline. But my thought is the Cleveland Browns have been playing Moneyball, okay? Andrew Hawkins hasn't really fulfilled his obligation to that contract in the form of production. He hasn't been that player that we saw when he was in PBS, that guy that was a flash of lightning that could take a play from 0 to 60 that quick. He hasn't done that for them. So the Browns could continue their trend of cutting guys who aren't productive. And I could see either Corey Coleman or there's another guy over there in Cleveland as well that could take Hawkins' spot for half the price. So stay tuned on that. I think that if they do cut him, Bengals have to scoop this guy. They have to. I mean, I know there's already a logjam at receiver, but I think that I'll be cool, and I'm pretty sure you guys will be cool with cutting anybody to take Baby Hawk back. So Baby Hawk, I'm hoping and praying if you get cut, you have to be back in stripes, man. You need your boy AJ. You already know what time it is. I think that he feels like he made a mistake leaving, chasing the money, but we will welcome you back with open arms for sure. You were one of my favorite slot players, so hopefully let's see if we can get Baby Hawk back to the jungle. And I wanted to end things with a segment on Mike Brown. Now, I don't think Mike Brown gets the respect that he deserves for turning this organization around. Okay? Now, one thing that Mike Brown did do, and people overlook it, is that he was willing, after so much turmoil, after so much of a power struggle, he was willing to hand the keys of the franchise over to Marvin Lewis in the front office, and I commend him for that. There should be nobody bashing this guy anymore. I mean, there's certain things that he didn't want to do in the past, like building an indoor stadium for the players, spending some money, and I honestly can debate that because he always spent money on some of our key players. But some of the stereotypes that people have about Mike Brown, he's overcome them. People say that he's cheap. I don't believe that Mike Brown is cheap. I'm a guy who wanted to, at a certain point, be in a front office, and I admire what he does with this team. The value that he gets for the talent that he has is baffling. I mean, you see teams that make so many bad contracts. They don't have the right philosophy of building through the draft. But Mike Brown has turned this team into a model franchise. Marvin Lewis was able to take control of his team. He was able to develop a culture. But all of that started with Mike Brown letting go. So kudos to Mike Brown, man. Hey, we will never forget the 90s, but we will remember how you turned that 90s team into a competitor, into one of the top teams in the league. And all we need is a Super Bowl championship, and I think everything will be forgiven for Mike Brown. So Mike Brown, I'm just letting you know that not everybody in the jungle hates on you, man. We definitely commend you for everything you've done. And some people aren't happy with just the playoff wins, and I understand that, but I come from a different area and environment, being here in Florida. I'm from Cincinnati, but I live in Florida now, and these guys around here would kill for 5 straight playoff berths. These guys, I don't even think anybody down here has sniffed a playoff berth in the past 5 years. So just remember that Mike Brown has turned our franchise into a successful franchise. And if anybody wants to debate that, then they're just pretty much hating on us. And that's okay. They don't have to believe in us, because we all believe. And that wraps up episode 9 of New Stripe City. Make sure you guys be safe out there, and we'll be back and forth with more content for you on New Stripe City.